Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Well, let's get to it. Welcome, my friends, to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I hope you'll indulge me because I would like to offer another profound experience that I had while my wife and I were in Japan. And actually, my wonderful wife has a leading role in this particular insight. So I think you'll find it very interesting, and it'll allow you to reflect a little bit upon yourself and where you're at with such things as mindfulness. So while my wife and I were in Japan recently, we spent time relaxing, enjoying the surroundings, and especially the focus of the trip, enjoying the beauty and aroma of Japan's famous cherry blossoms. If, as you live your own fully engaged life, you have the opportunity to jump over to Japan during cherry blossom season and enjoy those flowering trees, I highly recommend it. It is an incredible experience. Now, of course, we were not the only ones in Japan to enjoy the cherry blossoms. It's prime tourist season, and rightfully so, because these cherry blossoms deserve such a diverse audience to appreciate them. They really do. They're incredible. So we weren't the only ones there, and we weren't the only ones taking photos of these colorful little flowers. But while we were taking photos, my wife and I noticed a huge difference between how we took photos and how many other people were taking photos. And these were people from all over the world. I'd like to share the basic discussion that took place between my wife and I while on this incredible adventure. We were walking along the Philosopher's Path in Kyoto, and there were a lot of people there taking photos of the beautiful blossoms that were present, and only present for a short time. There were the professional photographers who were set up and patiently waiting for that perfect moment to snap their photo. But the vast majority of people walked along and would aim their camera, or more commonly, the camera on their cell phones, and then click a picture without ever really looking at what they were taking a picture of. These people paid little to absolutely no attention to what they were actually taking the photo of. Sure, they knew full well that they were taking photos of the cherry blossoms, but their mind was so busy with extraneous thoughts on everything but what they were doing at the time that they couldn't even pay attention to what they were taking a photo of. They were so distracted by their own rampant thoughts that they were unable to focus on these rather decent-sized trees bursting with colorful dark pink, light pink, white blossoms. If that doesn't command your attention, I don't know what does. It was actually like they were physically there, but not really there, not mentally there, not present at all. Even when surrounded by all of that incredible beauty, they were still too distracted by their own thoughts to enjoy it. Now, in all fairness, yes, there were some people there that were very present and very mindful of what they were doing and just in full appreciation of these cherry blossoms. But it didn't seem to be the norm. And that's why it caught our attention. We weren't paying attention to other people. We were wrapped up in our own experience. We were enjoying it. And then as we were walking down this path, we just noticed it because it was so incredibly overwhelming and common to see this. And it was such a contrast to what a few of us were doing that you couldn't help but notice it. And this isn't a judgment, it's an observation. And it's an observation of the vast difference between the mindless and the mindful. Now, the indigenous culture in Japan is typically very mindful. They are a very mindful people, and they live in a very mindfully based culture, a lot like Bhutan. But even with that being the case, a lot of the younger generations, like their millennials, have lost that sense of mindfulness for the most part. It's really diminished. Now, I started going over to Japan in 1998, and I've been there over 40 times since then. So I've been able to watch this over time taking place. And I can say that within the last maybe 3 to 4 years, this has increased dramatically there, this sense of mindlessness. The older generation still has it. They're very, very mindful. And there are some younger folks that still have it too. But just like in any of our cultures, we're noticing this amongst many of the millennials. So as we observed this, in addition to enjoying the blossoms, I stepped back as my wife was taking the photographs. And I noticed that when she would take a photo, she was very, very present. Each photo was just the right time. She would take her time. She would even reach up and kind of move the blossom lightly or whatever to get the type of photo she wanted. She was smelling them at the same time. And this is no surprise to me because she's very accomplished at mindfulness. But she provided an incredible contrast to what I observed with the majority of the masses who were so mindlessly snapping photos with their cell phones before quickly whipping around and wandering off, usually to go shop or something. Most people mindlessly clicked their cell phone cameras to capture a photo of the blossoms so that they can run back and post it on social media. And then they impatiently await getting a bunch of likes or comments or whatever, right? They would position themselves just so. They'd strike the typical fake poses and plaster that fake smile on their face and take a selfie that clearly, without a doubt, focused on themselves far more than those beautiful cherry blossoms. Again, to post on social media in order to have people leave comments and things that would stroke their ego, right? Some of these people didn't even bother to look at the flowers. They just walk by, raise their hand, click a photo at the tree, and look in another direction. It was amazing. I couldn't believe that you could be so distracted when faced with such incredible beauty. There were some trees that were so striking that my wife and I would step off of the path, off to the side where we wouldn't be in people's way, and we just stood there, and we were silent. We didn't speak. I don't know if we could have spoken. We just stood there in silence and awe at the beauty of some of these trees. Some of them have these bright pink blossoms, and in the same branch, the same tree, they have bright white ones as well growing together. It was just incredible. And we would stand there and just observe some of these trees for the longest time before walking a little further on the path and enjoying more. The trees run almost the entire length of this path, and it was miles long, so there was plenty to see. We had walked along this path viewing the trees for hours, and it took that long for us to even realize that we hadn't eaten all day. And it was incredible. We were just that absorbed in the beauty of these cherry blossoms and the overall experience. I mean, we were walking down the philosopher's path hand in hand, or I would have my arm around my wife, and it was just amazing. We got to spend this moment together. It was a very incredible, magical moment of an adventure. And to be able to share it so fully with someone you love so completely, I mean, can you imagine how much it enhances an experience like that? It is like no other. You see, this too is living a fully engaged life. And there's nothing that I would trade for that. So just to try and convey the feeling of this, I mean, imagine walking down this incredibly famous path in Japan, in Kyoto, where it's so beautiful there, and you're walking hand in hand or with your arm around the person that you love more than anyone else in the world, that you love so completely that you couldn't imagine being separated from them for even a day. My wife and I haven't been apart like that since we've been together. Married for 5 years next month, and together for about 10 years. We have never spent a night apart. We have been together the entire time. And I know a lot of people think, oh my God, you got to be sick of one another, or no, just the opposite. We still, to this day, cannot spend enough time together. We cannot get enough of one another. So to be able to have that sort of open-heartedness for the person you're with and for the place you're at and the beauty that you're seeing, I mean, can you imagine being filled with that kind of sensory overload of love and beauty? Oh my God. That's when you know you're living, and you are so grateful you're alive, and so grateful that you get to have this type of experience. This is when you're living life to the fullest. This is what I hope you too are starting to experience, and living it every moment of every day. You see, I don't share these things as a way to brag. I share them so you realize that it's possible. Because if it's possible, then you too can do it. You too can experience it. And that is my true desire, is that all of you are also able to begin living this incredible adventure of a fully engaged life, to feel these things. I would love it if every person on the planet could feel this and live this way. Nobody would ever fight or argue with anyone. And this is why I share the practices and processes that my wife and I have gone through, so that you too can attain this. So as we were walking along that path, and we viewed cherry blossoms at a number of temples and shrines and other prime locations. But I noticed that as we were walking along the path, and I'd look over at her, and she was just immersed in the beauty of the blossoms. So much so, as we were walking, her eyes were completely teared up with joy from what she was experiencing. She would usually, before taking a photo, take a moment and stand there and just take in the blossoms, completely one with the present moment. Her heart was open, and she was utterly absorbed in the experience, and her vibration was soaring. Then she would slowly, purposefully raise the camera, pause, and get just the right photo she was looking for. And then when she turned, there was a big smile on her face. It was incredible. It was just incredible. Between seeing the beauty of her smiling like that and the beauty of the cherry blossoms around us, oh my goodness, my heart just melted. So all of this led to my wife and I having a very interesting discussion. And she was explaining to me that she wasn't trying to capture the moment of the cherry blossoms, because the camera just couldn't do that. There was no way you could get a photograph that would capture just how delicate and beautiful those blossoms were. She knew that. So instead, she was using the camera to experience the flowers even more deeply than she could with her naked eye. It wasn't about the photo itself. It wasn't about capturing a moment. It was about looking more deeply and artistically at the little pink and white blossoms than she could with her own eye. Isn't that amazing? This is mindfulness. Now, I'm going to go over a little bit more of that discussion because I hope that this helps you find the insightful nature of what was going on. So, she was enjoying the cherry blossoms with each step that we took along the philosopher's path as we leisurely strolled along that narrow street. She'd stop occasionally, as I described, and take a few photos, but her purpose was not to capture an image or a moment in time for the sake of preserving a memory or for posting on social media. Instead, her purpose was to look more deeply and honestly and completely, more mindfully and consciously, as a way to more fully experience the moment. She used taking a photograph as a way to be even more engrossed in the actual moment itself, more engaged with what she was actually looking at. Now, she understands very well that the moment is only captured through the mindful experiencing of it and not by a photograph. So she actually managed to do both. This is in direct contrast to the typical mindless, detached, selfie-absorbed photo taking that was generally happening around us. You see, this is someone who's living a fully engaged life. My wife's living mindfully, consciously aware in the moment. And this is so helpful when you're having so many amazing adventures in your life, because you are truly present for them instead of asleep. We spent a lot of time talking about this together and really getting to the heart of how it is that a mindless person who is still asleep goes through life, and even when confronted with such incredible beauty and such an incredible experience before them, they still just can't wake up enough to be present. And in contrast to that, how when we're mindful and we're walking on the path of awakening, how you're able to actually be with the moment and fully appreciate and enjoy it on a level that others cannot comprehend. And if you've attained this mindfulness through the practices that I've shared for you, by now you truly understand what I'm saying here. It isn't elitist. It isn't anything like that. It's an observation of the contrast. It's an observation that clearly illustrates the difference between those who are on the path of awakening and those who are choosing to remain fast asleep. It lets us very clearly see why we chose to live a spiritual path, a spiritual life. It's why you engage in spirituality, is to step out of that mindless sleeping mode of the mind, of the ego, and step into a life of essence, a life of mindfulness, of awakening, a life that is lived fully engaged. And in full disclosure, when we returned home, we shared many of the photos of our adventure on our Facebook page, right? The social media thing. Mostly we did it in order to share these photos of our trip with our friends and our family. We posted several photo albums in order to share the beauty that we experienced with others that we care about. And we encourage them to go have this kind of wonderful experience for themselves and bring back pictures so we can see the wonderful adventure that they experienced as well. In this way, you can kind of share in it with them a little bit. There were no selfies. Yes, at my urging, my wonderful wife allowed me to take a few photos of her in amongst the cherry blossoms. But it was me who wanted those photos of her. She wasn't taking a selfie. And we don't own a selfie stick. I will not own a selfie stick. I think those are the dumbest things. But I wanted that picture of her because to have the beauty of my wife together with the beauty of cherry blossoms in a photo is just, wow, absolutely amazing. Now, we also had people who are kind enough to come up and offer to take pictures of us together in front of the trees. And we did that as well. We did that to commemorate our adventure. And so we have photos of ourselves together. But we don't give a thought to who likes those photos, who doesn't like those photos, or how many likes we get. The bottom line is, that sort of thing doesn't even enter into our mind. We don't care. You see, the purpose of all of the photos that we took were not even to share with other people, but to help us be more present and more deeply engaged in the experience of the moment. That's their primary function. And to serve as a record of all of our incredible adventures that we have had together and continue to have together. So the next time you lift your cell phone to snap off a photo, I encourage you to stop and ask yourself a couple questions. First, is this a selfie? Why am I taking the selfie? Is it the photo of me that I'm after so people can stroke my ego? Or is it a picture of me to commemorate this adventure that I'm on? What is the purpose of your selfie? And are you even mindful enough to know the difference, to pay attention in the first place? Most people aren't. They're actually like robots going through the motion, just clicking selfies of themselves all the time. And then I would encourage you to ask yourself another question. Am I mindlessly taking this photo right now? Or am I using this opportunity to look more deeply into that which I am attempting to photograph? Am I using it as a way to be more present, more absorbed into that present moment? Ask yourself those two simple questions before you click your next photos. Right? You're filling up your phone with photos all the time, or you got your camera out at special occasions. Doesn't matter if it's your cell phone or a good camera. I encourage you to run those couple of questions by yourself as much as you can remember to do so. And through this alone can help you with your attainment of mindfulness. And it will help you to develop the ability to live a more fully engaged life, just like my beautiful bride and I do. I truly desire that for you. I wish that for you. And I know you both desire and deserve it. Give this some contemplation and look around. Observe for yourself at how often this takes place. See if you can observe and notice whether the people taking their photos with their phones are doing so with a sense of awareness, of mindfulness, or if it is a completely mindless robotic act. I would also encourage you to stop by www.expansionmastery.com, pick up your signed copy of Expansion Mastery for $5. Go to the website. You'll get all the details. You got to enter a special discount code. It's right there on the website. And you can also pick up some of the programs that I have, such as the Breath Bridge and the Appreciation Mastery program. They will change your life and your practices. And make sure to visit me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Like and subscribe everything that you can and help spread true, authentic spirituality throughout the world so that others too may live a fully engaged life. Until next time, my friends, I wish you the very best in your practices and your life. Take care.